Welcome. Are you ready? Yes, we are. Mr. Pickett's here now, so we can start.
Should be on the way, volleyball.
So we can start now that you're here? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All rise, please.
Get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Welcome to all. It's been a busy morning. Item 1, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting, October 18th, 2016.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, confirmation and approval of claims.
Confirmation of claims this month. We have a total of $475,103.02 in our claims. When we break this down to our Fund 1, it comes to $193,298.52. Of course, we always like to compare to the same period a year ago. Kind of gives us an idea if we're on track. We do that this time last October. The claims, it would have been October, we would have reported in November for clarification, $212,194.44. So the difference is $18,895 less than what we paid this time last year. And of course, you know how that goes. There are things that float into one and out of the other depending on the timing of payments. So I'll just leave that at that point. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to break that down a little bit more for you. In our Fund 400, our debt service, there is a total of $87,528.22 that we paid on 2 of our bond series. Are there any individual questions you have on particular claims?
Who got to go to Toronto?
Toronto, or would that be, oh, that would probably be Ainsley Rose. Mr. Downs says, we have a trip to Toronto. Would that be Ainsley Rose's airfare by chance?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
That's, I believe it's Mike Paul from middle school, but to do the training.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Mike Paul, and he's helped me, someone back there with the...
He is earning his certification to be a Google innovator. So he's been going to these Google level trainings and coming back and training staff.
And there are a very few, like maybe 2 in the state of Kentucky. So we're...
He might be the second now. I'm not.
Yeah, he may be the second. So. Good question. Glad we got to brag on him a little bit.
Right.
Somebody make a note
There
for
you
superintendent's
go.
report, please. Great idea.
Lexia Learning, is that I'm assuming that's some kind of software?
Yes, it's a reading
Intervention, reading.
program that we use, and you'll see in your superintendent's evidence for focus groups. That's a program that we're using to measure targeted students, particularly special needs students, to measure their success, their improvement in reading. We attribute this program to a big help in helping us be a distinguished district.
Great. I will be abstaining, interested in a local vendor. Looking for a motion for confirmation and approval of claims.
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Financial report, item 3.
Have a few things to share with you this morning in the financial report. We often talk to you about accounting best practice, and one of the things that we've learned that would be a good idea for us is obviously we have the school account, the school district account, and then we have our special tax collection account. And in order to be able to monitor those accounts and keep our eye on everything we should be keeping our eye on, we're going to be doing away with that account and ledgering that information into Munis and to the main account. And it's been recommended to us for security reasons. It's just really a good idea to do that. Now, you're going to see some things that are going to be a little bit different. The receipts that are being posted into the general account, you're going to see an increase there. We do get some advantages by doing this. Obviously, from auditing purposes, and our auditor is here today, so may even be willing to speak to this for us, but there are advantages there. We make sure we get those documents looked over because they're not a separate entity, but they're not the same entity. Also, it does give us an advantage of being able to have these funds directly. As soon as we collect them, we can put them in and they become immediately accessible instead of having to wait until that is transferred at a later time. So that process is not completed yet. You'll see it gradually taking place. For the most part, it is complete, but we are moving into doing away with that second account. Secondly, give you an update on our tax collection. We have had great success. November the 2nd was the last date to pay for a 2% discount, and we had 80% of our clients to pay their taxes in advance. And so out of 6,256 tax bills, 4,985 have been paid at this time, and this is we're ahead of the game from where we were this time last year. We anticipate the next big surge to be on December the 31st, and that's when the base due is the base amount would be due. Also, just want to keep you abreast of some training that we've done. We talk to you often about the Red Book accounting practices, and we periodically provide those trainings for our school staff. We have accomplished that again this fall. Had a very productive meeting. We also, the finance officer has also been meeting with bookkeepers on an individual basis as well. So doing the best we can to keep our eye on things, and I feel confident that today when we hear our report from our auditor that we'll be able to back up some of the things that we're saying in this report. So anyone have any questions?
On the Red Book training, who all is trained on that?
Well, obviously, bookkeepers are the main people that are trained.
Okay.
Principals are involved, athletic directors, the people that handle money need to have that information as well. And that's what some of the individual meetings with the finance officer and the bookkeeper is to have that conversation. For example, if multiple receipt forms are not being filled out, you can't sign a student's name on there. The student needs to sign that. If a athletic event is turned in and it's not balanced and there's no explanation on why it's not balanced, well, you can't accept that. It has to. So those are the kind of things.
Okay.
So it bleeds out into a number of people.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments on the financial report? Moving on to item 4, the approval of the fiscal year 2016 audit report.
I was going to ask Mr. Jason Strange to come forward at this time and present some information to us. He will be working with us on both items 4 and 5 today. I'd like to say that it's been a pleasure to work with Smith & Associates again this year. We feel like that they're doing excellent work, and one of the things that we appreciate most about them is that they not only find areas of concern, but they share with us how we need to fix those for the next audit, and that's something that we've tried very hard to do. Jason, thank you for being here.
I'd like to thank the board for having Smith & Company prepare your own financial statement audit, and thank the superintendent and Tracy as well. Everything went very smoothly this year. Of course, this is, I believe, our 3rd year as far as getting information, knowing each other, where everything's coming from. Went very smoothly. Pleasure to work with everyone. I believe you all have a copy of the audit. I'm just going to go through some highlights. Anybody has any questions, I can drill down on in more detail. But we'll just kind of take the overall view and hit some highlights here. And we can go back to whatever you may need answering. So on page 1, this is our report on the financial statements. You'll see the bold there that said the bold heading, management's responsibility for the financial statements. What that's basically saying is laying out that these financial statements are your all's, the board's responsibilities. In the next paragraph, you see the auditor's responsibility. Our responsibility is only to express an opinion on these financial statements. So these aren't our financial statements, they're the board's financial statements that we express an opinion on. On page 2, you'll see our opinion there in the heading, and in our opinion, we state that financial statements of this district are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle, which is an unmodified, clean opinion on financial statements. So with that, I'll direct you to page 11. This is your overall, you can think of it as a balance sheet for the district, statement of net position. Knowing all of your assets, liabilities, and then the residual net position at June 30, 2016. So your total column there, you'll see total assets of $29.7 million. And you also have items that we have to break out for governmental accounting standards referred to as deferred outflows of $1.49 million. And then less liabilities of $29.3 million, or I'm sorry, $31.5 million. So your residual of assets less liabilities is a net position of a negative $274,000. I think with the new accounting pronouncement that came out last year where you all had to pick up the portion of the CSRS net pension liability, that's what's creating that net fund deficit. So you'll see under non-current liabilities, that net pension liability, excuse me, for CSRS was $7.5 million. So that's what's putting the district's overall position in a net deficit. And then on page 13, these are a more typical balance sheet that you would normally see. It doesn't include all the long-term liabilities and all the fixed assets for the district. So it's really just your cash, your accounts payable, and your fund balance. So you'll see for your general fund there, it's approximately $1.94 million, $1.77 million of that was in cash in the general fund. Liabilities of $45,000 for a net fund balance of positive $1.9 million. So this is the more cash, considered a modified accrual basis, more of a cash basis of what you're seeing in your monthly budgetary reports. On page 15, this is the change in your fund balance from the prior year. You'll see for your general fund, you had total revenues of $22.7 million. Total expenditures of $22.9 million, then other financing sources of a positive $564, which leaves a positive fund balance of $1.9 million. Page 17, these are your what's considered proprietary funds, business type activities for food service, child care, and adult education. Or activities are actually somewhat supported by charges for services. And you'll see total assets of $522,000 in these accounts, and total liabilities of $1.2 million. Again, a big portion of those liabilities is the net pension liability, almost $1.2 million net pension liability that is recorded on the proprietary funds. The total net position of $457,000 deficit as a result of that net pension liability. Page 18 shows the total operating revenues for these proprietary type funds was at $851,000, operating expenses of $2.6 million. So you have a deficit in operations of $1.8 million approximately, and those are funded by non-operating sources such as federal and state grants. So you have federal, state, local grants, and contributions of $1.45 million to cover most of those expenses. But overall, a net change in position, a decrease of $307,000 for your proprietary funds. Next, on page 32, these are your changes in your long-term obligations. You see revenue bonds, approximately $19.4 million at the beginning of the year. You issued a new bond for the Salt River property that was purchased during fiscal year 16 of $4.5 million. Regular payments of $1.4 million. So you have an ending balance of your bonds of $22.47 million. And then you can see also you have some capital lease obligations, approximately $675,000 beginning of the year, paid down to approximately $646 at the end of the year. And these are KISTA leases for buses. Those are recorded as a capital lease. Just a bit more detail on the pension on page 48. If you'll remember from last year when this standard was implemented to record these net pension amounts, the district doesn't record any liability for the KTRS portion. It's only the SERS portion. So, but you do have to report amounts. And KTRS reported amount that, basically they attribute to the Bardstown Independent School District of $94.3 million. And that's an increase from $80.5 million in the prior year. That's just a disclosure here in the schedule. It's not recorded in your financial statements. Ultimately, they're asserting that it's a state contract, that the state will make that deficit and not the individual districts. And then below that, you'll see the SERS numbers, which are the amounts that were picked up in the financial statements. And that net pension liability, these are amounts reported by KRS's actuaries. That went from 4.6 million to 7.5 million. So fairly large increase there. And your all's proportionate share it went from 0.173% to 0.174%. So I just want to point out there was a pretty significant increase that the actuaries reported for the plan. Next on page 61, it's an overall summary. Of course, I went through the audit that we do on the financial statements. We also issue reports over your compliance with federal award expenditures and on internal controls in accordance with government auditing standards. Again, the type of audit report issued was unmodified. We didn't identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control, and there was no non-compliance that was material to the financial statements noted. For federal awards, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And our opinion over compliance with major programs was unmodified, which is a clean opinion. And there were no instances of findings that were to be reported in accordance with the single audit or uniform guidance. So overall, it was, again, this year, very clean. We did have some findings in the prior year that we have to report the status on page 63. As you all know, you all hired another CPA to prepare these financial statements, so we had significantly less adjustments. So we actually did an audit instead of doing a lot of accounting, so to speak, where we were making adjustments. So that went very smooth this year, and we did not identify any material adjustments. That's why that finding from the prior year went away this year. Number 2 were the access and munis for payroll and accounts payable. Those issues had been addressed and corrected. And for non-compliance or federal award expenditures for the food service, that finding on page 64 has been remedied as well. We noted that there was that the cash balances in the food service was in compliance for this fiscal year, so that was corrected. And Mr. Holsclaw mentioned some of our findings. Also, as part of the audit, we go to all the schools and we pull a sample of receipts, disbursements, and we look at various other policies and procedures. Credit card has been used, property monitored, our fundraising sheets being used. And then on page 70, you'll see these are some instances, fairly common when you start digging into details. You'll see multiple receipt funds were not signed at the high school. There were a few missing multiple receipt forms. And then the ticket sales, as Mr. Holsclaw mentioned, sometimes we would note that it was just turned in. There was no reconciliation of the tickets sold, the ticket numbers. It was just turned in, signed, and here's X amount of dollars with this. And then monitoring the credit card sign in, sign out, make sure that's signed, make sure there's actual PO numbers put on there when it's signed out. So very, very minimal findings, and we go over this with Mr. Hoseclaw and Tracy, and then you all will meet with bookkeepers and do annual training to remedy these type of instances. Anybody have any questions?
The CERS commitment, that seems to be a staggering number. Is that, I'm not exactly clear. First of all, what that stands for, what CERS? I know
County
it's the
Employees Retirement System.
Retirement System, so County Employees Retirement System. So, on those that we have a negative balance on, that's something it shows it on our balance sheet, but it's a state encumbrance as far as.
Well, they're asserting that, you know, that the KCRS, Kentucky Teachers Retirement, is a state liability, but that CERS would not be, it would be the participant's liability.
Okay.
Participating employers, you know,
Okay.
being the district being a participating employer.
Okay.
Now, it's not something that, I think we mentioned this last year, you can't just write a check to, they're covered, it's just gonna be measured each year.
Right.
Because you've got so many factors, how many people are on the rolls, how many people come off, what's the assumptions that change every year, your investment rate percentage, your discount rate, so.
If I understand it right, Mr. Strange, it's a way to keep up, but it's not an actual number. When you say a deficit, like back on page 7, that's not, it is a deficit, but it's not a bill that we're not paying. It's keeping up with what the state is holding us accountable for.
Correct.
So that should ease the board's mind a little bit back on page 11 if you were worried about whatever it was, $400-some thousand deficit. It's just bookkeeping.
I think I brought that up last year and asked why we couldn't pay it off. He said you go to jail if you pay it off.
I don't think I said that.
Certainly says against the law to pay it off.
Fun with numbers. All right. Anybody have any other questions?
Do you still have money in the bank?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to call you, would you take a look at page 62 with us, please? Just spend a little time on that page with us.
62?
Yeah, that's a nice page.
Which one's? Oh, yes. Sure. Again, we say, yeah, no findings to report, the financial statement findings, and then no findings to report for federal awards of question cost. And it was, again, it was a lot cleaner this year as far as the number of adjustments that were made for financial statements, and you'll hire a knowledgeable CPA to come in and assist in making these adjustments, so that when we come in, we're actually just auditing the numbers.
So that was money well spent.
Yes.
Betty Penny, right?
Yes. Okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
Oh, I just think they've done an excellent job and deserve some praise because it is a big job, huge responsibility.
How long does the process take? Is it 60 days or how long have you been?
We typically come out, we spend about a week and a half, and then we also we'll spend about, depending if it's high school, we'll probably spend 4 hours at high school. So each school at a minimum 2 hours. And then when we're here, we're probably a week and a half to 2 weeks field work, and then reporting, we got probably another week to 2 in the office. So you're looking, yeah, around 60, I'd say 60 days.
All right. Seek a motion for approval of fiscal year 2016 audit report.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
So, what about our
Item 5.
These are the documents after Jason's audit.
Okay.
This is, we had the unaudited that was approved and submitted in July. These are the audited. So this is what we've just submitted to KBC, so I need you to approve that, please. With the adjustments from the auditor.
Okay. Okay, so in item 5, you can go ahead and introduce that, and we'll talk our way through it.
Okay, so item 5 is similar but different. It's the approval of the fiscal year 16 audited financial report and the balance sheet.
So this would have been a document that we prepared. It's in your packet there. see, we'll be behind 5. And is this the work that Ms. Pendergrass?
This is actually our audited annual financial report and balance sheet. We submit to KDE in July an unaudited AFR and balance sheet, and these are after the auditors come in, and if we have any adjustments, those are now made. They've been posted, and then you all will approve this and be submitted to KDE, and it will balance with our audit.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Anybody have any comments or questions regarding this item 6? Excuse me, item 5. Seek a motion
Is this
for-
going to be what's posted in the paper?
Actually, this will be posted on our website.
Mm-hmm.
We're not obligated to post this in the paper, but it will be on our website for viewing.
Seek a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Item 6 today is Superintendent's Report, District SMART Goal Results.
We have a very patient group of students with us today, and we appreciate your patience, and I think we have a few parents here too, and thank you all for being here. We're going to jump right to that. We had you down the agenda a little bit but in the superintendent's report, but I'm going to bump you up to the top. So first of all, Coach Sanchez, are you back there somewhere? Come on up here to the podium. We're going to put you on the spot. Not really, not really. We hired Coach Sanchez back in 2009, and she took over a struggling volleyball program, to say the least. She worked very hard, began building this program just like you do it from the very beginning in the middle school, and worked that program, and at the same time kept improving in the high school. In 2011, she had the first winning season for the Bardstown High School volleyball team, and she was 14-11. They've had 5 winning seasons since then, and she's made great improvement each year. This year was absolutely an incredible year. We finished the season with a school record of 25 wins, a district runner-up, a regional runner-up, and we lost to a very, very tough Central Hardin team in the championship. I think we do have a few seniors that we're going to lose, but the vast majority of this group is going to be here again next year. So we're looking for some very big things from this group to continue the success that we have. So we're very proud of all that you've accomplished. Coach, I'd like to just give you a moment if there's something you'd like to say to us, introduce the girls or something of that
Thank you.
nature.
On behalf of the team, I just want to say thank you first and foremost, not only for the support throughout this season, as well as in the past, and the patience as we grew the program, so the support doesn't go unnoticed, and we've just enjoyed the ride. This season, we were labeled the Cinderella team all season, and we were excited to just make it into the first round. And then we found ourselves in the second, and in the third, and the paper was writing the Cinderella team, upsetting everybody. So it's been a phenomenal season. But like you know, Mr. Holtzpaul said, we put in a lot of work. You know, about 8 years worth of work, and it started in 6th grade with the same group. This is a special group. They're going to continue their success, and just from this, we celebrated the small victories, like having the first pep bus for volleyball. We're like, we're taking a pep bus, we're excited, you know. So obviously the trophies are there, and you know, we're excited about all those accomplishments, but the little small victories in between that go unseen, that unless you're a part of the program, you don't really see it. Those are the ones that we're celebrating the most, and we just look forward to continual growth. We had a middle school camp this year over fall break. We had a grades 3 through 8 camp, and there was like 60 kids there. So it's really growing. They're excited about it. So we just continue to thank you for your support, and we're definitely proud of them and their accomplishments this season. So thank you.
How about, ladies, would each one of you stand up and just introduce yourself very quickly?
And the class that you-
Yeah, tell us what grade you're in as well. Thank you.
I'm Rosa Lopez, I'm a senior. I'm Maggie Downs, a junior. I'm Courtney Snyder, a senior. I'm Lily Hutchins, I'm a senior. I'm Cheryl Smith, and I'm a junior. I'm Jordan Boggs, and I'm a freshman. I'm Allie Walsh, and I'm a junior. I'm Lexus Shekels, and I'm a junior. Abby Downs, junior. I'm Destiny Love, and I'm a junior. I'm Jasmine Boggs, and I'm a freshman. I'm Tatum Brown. I'm Amber Mason, I'm a junior. I didn't mean to. Roseanne Downs, this is the first year that she has had assistant coaches. Andrew Clark came on and I came on to help her this year. And it was a great season, lots of fun. And this is a very special group of girls.
Well, we are very proud of our Lady Taggart volleyball team. Let's give them a round. Thank you, Coach. Thank you all again for your patience, and I know you're dying to get back to class.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're looking back at those financial reports. Football scores.
You got volleyball, you got archery, bowling, and Thomas Nelson's got bass fishing.
Bass fishing, all right. High school sport.
I got some bass we can fish for.
Don't do that yet. I'm getting there, man. I'm 48 out there.
So is that the remainder? Yeah, more.
Moving on with our superintendent's report, we do have, I want to give you a quick update on our advanced ed process that we're going through. We had a very productive day yesterday, getting things started. Most of the work that the external review team is going to be doing with the central office staff has been completed. Took place yesterday. Today and some tomorrow will mostly be working out into the schools. Obviously, you had interviews this morning. From all indications, things are going extremely well. We will meet in this room tomorrow at 2:30 in a special called meeting that has been advertised. We will hear the final report from the external review team. So looking forward to that. Just to remind you, the purpose of the process that we're going through is to validate that we are doing the kind of things that we need to do to increase student achievement, as well as to provide evidence that we have stakeholder satisfaction in our community. So we feel very confident that we're going to do well with this. But in the event that there are areas, and in any audit, as we know, their job is to find something. There will be something that they'll ask us to work on, and the good news about that is that we're striving to be excellent. And so this will be some help from an outside group to identify an area, and we will embrace that opportunity to improve in that area when they present that to us. Also, I hope that you'll get an opportunity to see those activities that we have for you in the packet. I think it's separate of the board notes this time, but it is there in your packet. Take a look at those. Some things going on in December, early January as well. Moving on to the next item in the superintendent's report, I'd like to take a moment today to recognize my friend Trey Crumbly. Our great loss in the community of Bardstown is going to be Lexington and the Herald's game. We will miss him sorely. We appreciate the coverage that he's provided with us. He's been a pleasure to work with, and if you'll recall, I told him shortly after he got here, I said, you won't be here long because the good ones just keep moving on, and he's definitely one of those guys that we'll be reading about later. We hope we're just going to put him on loan for a little while, and he'll go up there and get all trained up and then come back and maybe be our editor or something later when Forrest retires. So let's give Mr. Crumbly a round of applause. Again, we wish you well in your endeavors there. Our final item in our superintendent's report today has to do with instruction. And one of the things that we have learned in this process, after all, we are a distinguished school. Have I mentioned that to you?
Not today.
No, not today.
Not today.
In order to reach that goal, there are some things you need to do. And one of the things that we have learned is that we need to monitor those things that are important to us. And so we have this process of going into the classrooms of what we call instructional rounds. And Mr. Beck's going to share some of that with you. We have school administrators, we have central office administrators, and we have teachers involved in this. we're not looking for information for an evaluation standpoint. It's just to look at, and I'm going to let him tell you about these 9 best practice instructional strategies here in just a moment. But that's what we're looking for, and then we grade ourselves out on that. Then we use that back in our PLC groups to improve instructions. It's not one person's classroom, it's the entire school's classroom. In fact, what you'll see today, if I'm correct, Mr. Beck, I think he's going to show us an entire district information on those 9 instructional strategies. So we're not pointing out one person, we're saying overall, this is what we're doing, so we build lessons then to make sure we're addressing the things that we're concerned with. Because we do know for a fact that the research definitely proves that if you are able to implement these best practice 9 instructional strategies with fidelity, you will be successful. Mr. Beck?
Yes, sir. Part of the review process that we looked at, that Mr. Holzgall was speaking of, allowed us to create three SMART goals. Those are essentially summarized as our PLCs, our instructional rounds, the ones he was just speaking of, and assessment. So what we're going to do is we're going to present our data for the first quarter on those 3 instructional SMART goals. So the first goal was about PLCs. And those PLC goals are broken into 4 different components. We have norms as the first component, and that's essentially the rules for our meeting. Do we follow those rules? Are they established? We have data driven. Are we answering these questions? Are we formulating this data in our meetings? Are the meetings regularly scheduled? That speaks to the importance of adhering to a regular scheduled process when we have our meetings. Are administrators participant? That speaks to the importance of having principals as the instructional leader. And so as we go through, I can show you, here's our first round of data that we have on that. The scale you're looking at is from 1 to 4, which is essentially, we've never done that, all the way to we do that every time. What we were hoping for here is we were hoping for something around in the 2s as we begin to grow this process. We were pleasantly surprised that our results across the board were in the 3 range, which is something that says we're doing most of these things most of the time. And so the discussions that came from this were some of the most powerful things. And we'll talk more about those discussions. In SMART Goal 2, this was the instructional rounds that Mr. Holzgall spoke of. These are our instructional practices that give us the most effect size. And in layman's terms, that simply means that if we do these things, we will get the most bang for the buck. So that's what we were doing, is taking a look and saying, are we doing these things? I'm not going to go through and read all of those instructional practices to you, but we'll take a look at the data from those. One of the things that's really important to remember as we look at our data for the instructional practices is this is a single data point, or a snapshot, if you will. So this is not necessarily what's going on every day in every class in Bardstown City Schools, but it is the snapshot of what we saw that day at that time. So what's really important at this point is the discussions that were occurring as the principal, central office leader, and the teachers would go into a room and they would observe, they would come out, and they would have those instructional discussions about, this is what I saw, how do you think you can make that better? That was what we are getting the most bang for our buck right now. Where we will be using this data later is as we get a second and third and fourth data point, it will give value to it. We may see that targets reference jumps 20%. We may see that student engagement comes down. What we want to look for is we want to look for patterns. And from those patterns, that's where we will begin to put together professional development for our staff members. Any questions on 2? Okay. And then lastly, goal 3 is some of our work through Ainsley Rhodes talked about formative assessment. And these are the 4 components to formative assessments that our PLCs need to have. First, formative assessments need to be implemented. That is assessments not necessarily for a grade, but to let the teacher know what the student knows and what I need to teach next. Summative assessments are the ones for the grade. So we need to be doing formative assessments. We need to be using the data from the assessments to guide our instructional practices. The students already know this, so I'm going to go ahead and teach this. They don't know this, so I'm going to remediate in this. Number 3, common assessments is the assessment that I give, the same one that Chris is giving in the same class. To be able to make any kind of assessment judgments, they have to be common across the board. And then lastly, the feedback that we give the students, is it timely and specific? Are we just saying, good job, son? Or are we saying, good job about specific components? Are we saying, try harder? Or are we saying, here's exactly what you need to do to get better next time? So those are the 4 components that we look for in our assessment system. And then here's what we came through. Again, we're looking at a system of, a rubric of we never do this to we always do this. And we were pleasantly surprised with a lot of this too, because you can see that most of our numbers ended up in 3 already. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll monitor the data as we get a second and third and fourth data point. But right now, the biggest big fit, and I think we have principals here that could verify that, the discussions that are taking place. Because what you monitor is what gets done. We're monitoring this, they're talking about it, they're implementing it. It completes that entire triad. All right, that was our SMART goals. Any questions?
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Drack?
All right,
Thanks for the
thank
nice
you.
explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last item, and then we'll be ready to move on to our item 7. Mr. Strange got away from me a while ago. I did want to thank him for his work and, as I said, helping us identify areas. I also want to thank our financial officer, Ms. Tracy Rogers, on excellent work. Page 62, he should have spent a lot more time on page 62. No significant findings is important to point out, and we're very proud of the finance department overall and your leadership. Thank you, Ms. Rogers. That completes the superintendent's report.
Going back to the audit, I don't know if anybody saw, but page 8 is a good, pictures work well for me. And these pie pictures really always identify where the money is coming from and where the money is going to. So just in case you want to earmark that, that's a pretty good snapshot as well.
If we have to go through this interrogation thing again, I know exactly what to do. Just turn the table real quick. What are you all doing? That's so good.
Yeah.
And getting talking about themselves. That worked. That was the last, I think, 30 minutes of our conversation. What are you doing?
Exactly. All right, thank you, sir. For item 6, item 7, recognition of visitors. Do we have any visitors that would like to be recognized today? Yes, ma'am. Could you identify yourself and your address, please?
Hi, my name is Mary Mitchell. I am just a grandmother, as I call it, in the neighborhood, and I am in the neighborhood. It has been brought to me by several parents, the concern of not having monitors. I call myself an instructor. I volunteered to be an instructor on the bus, but they said that they in this bad need of monitors. Now, when I went to the bus this year, I went because I had behind 84, I have several students there that attend my Keeping It Real for Christ class every third Tuesday that were getting in trouble. And if they are in my class, I don't know how to get in trouble, so I told them. So I wanted to see what was going on. So I volunteered my time to go on the bus because I don't want any of them to be thrown off the bus, because most of them out there, their parents don't have much, and most of them don't have transportation. So if they get off the bus, then they run into truancy, and then I have to be going to court with them to try to get their parents out of trouble. That's what I'm doing in the community. I'm trying to get the ones who don't really know to do, how to do, and what to do. So when I got on the bus, I realized, y'all work in these offices. Y'all have no idea what your bus drivers has got to do. None. If you ain't drove a bus, they are amazing. You need to give them some props. Because these children that y'all have in Bardstown City Schools, I don't know how you teach, but y'all special. And I put my hat off to you, y'all special. Because when I was in school in the 80s and 60s, 70s, and we could not have gotten away with what these kids are getting away with. They are the most unruly, disrespectful kids I've ever seen in my life. But in time, I know if they were worked with the hands of love, and that's a different hand than what they've been dealt. Most of them don't have no sense of respect or love or understanding because they don't get it at home. So we got the bus drivers under stress because they can't do both those jobs. They can't drive that bus and monitor that bus at the same time. There is absolutely no way. Because when I got on the buses, I've been on 3 different ones, the children are flipping, they got legs cocked open. You got girls and boys on the same bus now. They do everything on them buses. y'all need to be blessed that y'all ain't got no charges drawn on you. I'm serious. These kids are out of control on these buses. And if these bus drivers are telling y'all anything, you need to listen to them because they need help. These kids are I ain't never seen nothing like it. But we got some of the buses under control now. And I don't know what you all can do for them. But if somebody asks you for something, try to give it to them. Because they need props for just being able to drive without wrecking with the way some of those kids' behaviors are. They are out of this world. Then I have the other issue that the parents has talked to me about the classroom downstairs. I don't know what that means. The classroom downstairs, I call it where the bad kids go. So I don't know what that is. But the concern is how they are treating them, but they're not doing all to one what they do to one. You know what I mean? They're not doing everybody the same way. Everybody's not getting treated the same way over the same charge. So I told them I would come here with the concern of there's a lot of us grandparents who can't get in the school system to try to help out, but there's some of us that want to help for free. All we want is for our kids to get what they deserve and to have the first shake that everybody else has. And some of them feel like they don't get a first shake. So my concern is that all of you open up your hearts and eyes and understand that we as mothers, grandmothers, we want the best for our kids, and we don't want none of them to be left behind, but we want them all to be treated the same. Okay? And I think that's all I have. That was my main concern, the bus and the classroom downstairs. And like I said, I give my time freely, and there's more that would give their time freely just to make sure we don't end up like Louisville and all these places where kids are having tragedies on buses because there ain't no way a bus driver can take care of the bus. There ain't no way. And I sit in the middle of the bus and I can do what I do on the bus, but there's things that will try to go down, but because they know who I am. And everybody don't see that. But if you give a child respect, they respect you. And if you talk to them, not at them, they'll understand you better. So that's the key that I'm doing with the kids, even at Keeping It Real for Christ kids. Those kids are hungry. They come to eat, get their fellowship, their worship, and they get to go home full, but not just full of the word, they get full of love. I treat them all with love. And I want them to go out and treat everybody that they run into with the same respect that I give them.
5-minute point, ma'am. Mr. Holscott, would you like to address?
Yeah, I would. Could you please provide me with your phone number?
859.
Oh, you don't have to do it in the public.
That's okay.
Let's just drop it off to me.
Okay, yeah,
let's do that.
Yeah.
And let's us get together, okay?
Okay.
And we want to thank you for being here and bringing your concerns.
Okay.
We do appreciate you. Any other comments, board?
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I so appreciate you for coming forward, because this is what we always need as a school board, for communication and people to let us know.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Okay,
We'll
all right.
We'll be in touch.
And all you have to do is give me a call. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other visitors like to? No, I guess that's it. All right, so that's item 7. Item 8 is the focus on delivery targets at Bardstown High School.
We have been doing this for a while. We are going to share with you today our scores at the high school, and also that would be our scores for this year, and then our plan for the coming year. Mr. Pickett, I will ask you to do your best. I know that we are kind of on a tight time limit now. We're kind of going beyond, so thank you for your help.
Thank you. Thank you, board members, Mr. Holsclaw, for this opportunity this evening. Ms. Reed is passing down something that I thought, as we discuss numbers, there's so much to discuss, and I'm going to try to limit to this to a brief glimpse of some great news in what's happening in our most recent results from our school report cards. So some small numbers on your paper there in front of you, and just a quick overview. What I put in front of you is it's got a lot of lines. It looks very busy, but in a nutshell, just wanted to point out the 5 areas to the far left. Of course, these are 5 areas The accountability system, it's a possibility these areas could change a little bit, but this year we're under the same system as in the past. Take a look briefly, take just a second or two and look at the last 5 years at where we've come from. And of course, these are all worth 20% each. That gives us our overall accountability score. And just take a look at some areas. We have in achievement went up. Of course, if you look at 3-year trends specifically, if you look at GAP, and that's what I'm going to spend the most of my few minutes today to speak on, look at GAP, which are populations of students that are not achieving at certain levels as the larger group. We doubled that this year, and I'll talk about that some more just in a moment, but growth, where we're at, college and career readiness, if you look at 2012 to where we're at today, and of course graduation rate. All of this feeds into the overall learner score, which is the big number that you kind of view our school on at Bardstown High School. All wrapped together, 5 years ago, we had an overall learner score of 56. Okay? This year, 68.9. That goes into a weighted score out of 77% of our overall score. The other 23% comes from program reviews there. You see that the top lighter box that comes down. Our overall score after the weight is established, 76.1. And of course, once again, 5 years ago, that's a 20-point jump of continuous improvement, which is phenomenal. Just like Coach Sanchez mentioned here a few moments ago, 2011, where she was at, look where she's at today. It's that vision and hard work and teacher, staff, board, district support that have landed us at this overall category of being distinguished. And of course, we're not settled. There's still lots to work on, but we are extremely proud of our students, professional learning communities, this accreditation that's taking place, the work with Ms. Blackman and Mr. Beck that's going to be taking over. It is so many great things. It's not one thing that we're doing, but it's several. Anyway, very quick. I mentioned GAP. I'm sorry. Here's a few things that also kind of, before I talk about GAP, a few things that to keep in mind. 6.4 point improvement in overall score. I mentioned that. 7.3 points above the state set goal. Our goal was 61.5. We scored 68.8. We're one of 50% of the high schools in Kentucky that are meeting their state set goals when you talk about delivery targets. We met all of our reading and math novice reduction targets. We're above state average in all subject areas with the exception of social studies. Social studies used to be the only area that was above state set goals. And now they're very close, but I'm working with them. We're not satisfied until all of our subject areas are above the state average. But above state average in student growth, above state average in graduation rate, and we're proficient with our program reviews that encompass arts and humanities, our writing programs, our business, career pathways, CTE. So a lot of above state averages and meeting delivery targets. But GAP, what was the need to focus on our GAP population, and specifically? Our GAP population is made up of African American students, Hispanic students, free and reduced lunch students, students with disabilities. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we have really worked on a process to get to those students that are in most need. We identify students in the area of disabilities, for an example, in writing, something we've worked very hard on. There's a 10th and 11th grade on-demand writing test at the end of the year. So they're receiving writing throughout high school, but those 2 years when they're assessed, we put in some plans and processes that really get to their needs that are not necessarily met in the regular classroom. They're still in the regular classroom, but I want to talk about the things that we're doing with those students. In the regular classroom, about 80% of needs are met. And of course, that's through collaboration with special education teachers, changes of instruction to meet the needs of students, but there's still about 5-10% of students that need more than that. The interventions for these identified students, of course, you know, the English class collaboration, we now in our master's schedule, which for the longest time we thought was impossible, but we actually have periods of writing classes outside of their regular English for these students to get that extra on grade level. If they're behind grade level, they're receiving that, you know, that 7th grade writing level instruction, that where they're at, meeting them where they're at. Then their English classes, they're still receiving the grade level instruction. But small group writing resource along with students' regular English class, we have one-on-one instruction with a writing coach. And no, that's not another position that's been added. We have come across the opportunity to use the staff that we have to kind of name a head writing coach, which is our English department chair. But between her, Ms. Morgan Hunt, and the special education department, they really have stepped it up to where they get to these students. And of course, you've got the writing expert, and then you've got the expert with special needs learning. You know, special education teachers in high school, it's not like a special education teacher in elementary. I mean, they go from a biology class to a chemistry class to a geometry class. They're expected to be the content expert somewhat, which they're not. So they have to be paired with someone that kind of guides them and assists them in giving them help themselves. Here's just a quick example of real data that we're working on and getting real results. For the last couple of years, we've sat down with Mr. Holtzclaw and Ms. Blackman to go over identified students, and you can see a lot of columns here. Of course, students and their grade levels, their different disabilities being addressed, and we go back and look at data of past performance going back to middle school, and then we go in and put together a rubric where I have our English teachers and Mr. Boggs, assistant principal, with his past in English, to go through and look at the progress of these students and where they're going. We're evaluating their performance every quarter. Matter of fact, we just finished up the other day presenting our results from beginning of the year to right now. And here are some more benefits of that collaboration between English department and special ed department. A lot of ownership between students and staff. I mean, this is where staff and students both are in it together. It's not something forced on them, it's not one-sided. But let's look at what we've accomplished. This is the wrap up here. Novice reduction amongst identified focus students. We're seeing extreme reduced novice. Of course, that's a big thing with the commissioner, reducing novice to apprentice. It's meaningful intervention and teacher and student ownership. Last year, all novice students that we worked with showed improvement, with 70% of those novice students raising scores to their apprentice levels or better in writing. That's how big of an impact we had last year. Already this year, the first quarter, we have data showing 6 students raising their score from novice to apprentice through the monitored measures. And our overall goal for this year is to continue that momentum with eliminating novice, and our goal is set at 30%. And to meet this goal, we actually have a set number of students, out of students we're working with, to raise from novice to apprentice. So this distinguished rating, that gap, is just as important as the other categories, and that is very tough, but we're making progress. Really proud of what we've done to become distinguished.
Very good.
Excellent.
Any questions? I know you're all on a schedule, but any questions? I feel like
You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Do you have those handouts? I mean, do you have
yes, I can
Yeah.
forward that PowerPoint to you.
Yeah.
and-
Oh,
and-
I'm going to put it in the Dropbox.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Item 9, update on the bus garage relocation timeline.
And Mr. Hood is going to come and present to us, and Mr. Chair, we'd like to just do 9, 10, and 11. There are a couple of approvals in there, so he'll just remain up.
Okay.
Okay, the first one on there talks about the timeline. You've got that in front of you, but we have now got it set where our architects feel like this is a good plan for us. We started to really try to push them and get in before a certain time, but that just wasn't working out. So we have kind of slowed them down and made sure we got everything correct. So you have that document that talks about the whole the whole plan, with the bid opening being probably the biggest part of that in February, which we will then award. This says a special called Board of Education meeting. We will most likely try to get that done in the February meeting if it's not, going to push us too much. I don't think we'll have a special call meeting unless it's just absolutely necessary. Then, of course, in February the 14th, start construction, then substantial completion in May. That'll get us moved into the new facility over the summer break. If you'll look at these other two, they're approvals. This is just an architect. Both of these actually are things they're requiring from the State Department right now that we've not had to do in the past. We've already approved Sherman Carter Barnhart to be our school architects, but they want this owner agreement signature, which we're glad to give them, but that requires your approval today. And then also the schematic design, I know unless you were given that in a PDF, you may have been able to blow it up and see it. Mine's a little bit larger, plus I have one more copy, but basically all that's doing is setting us up to show what's going to be done. Let me remind you what those things are. There's going to be a wall put in that's going to separate the bus garage from the rest of that building. The next thing that's going to be done, there's going to be a climate control area where we're taking one of the bays and we're going to move our paper storage for the whole district out to that building. We're going to raise the floor in all of the areas that are currently down on this level. We're raising it up here to give us a building that we can use all on one level without any steps or anything. It's going to be great for us. And then a LED light upgrade in the whole facility, including outside, the lighting outside for where the buses are going to be turned around and things of that. All of those are on the table. Some of those are put in the regular first initial bid package, and a couple of those will be alternates if the money's available. We've already approved, you guys have already approved the BG1, so we know what monies are available for the project. If the bids come in good, we will do as much of that work as we can, those four things that I just mentioned. I know that's kind of quick. The last two, like I said, are just need approval from you on the schematic design, and the owner architect's agreement just needs your approval. And we'll be moving forward.
You mentioned the buses, the turn, how much was the bus weigh?
I'm not sure.
I'm just curious about, are they going to do concrete on the outside? Because I know I have had issues myself with asphalt.
Some of the area in the back is already concrete. We will probably have to do some sort of test to find out about the blacktop itself, if it's going to hold up or not. And
I would think that South River trucks are all heavy.
Yeah, exactly. They probably were.
Yeah.
But they didn't use that in the same exact way we were going to use that garage, but.
It's true.
I think they did, maybe repair.
Yeah, it's most
I'm just
likely,
curious. Well, that concrete.
like
reinforcement.
40,000 pounds comes to mind for some reason that's stuck in my head from 20 years ago when I took that test.
Well, I know the new city garbage truck weighs about 40,000 pounds, and it has played havoc with my parking lot.
Yeah, parking lot. Yeah, I would think, I would agree that
pivots around.
probably the Salt River trucks are as heavy, probably heavier than the school bus.
Well, that's for another day. I'm just curious.
I'll check into that.
13 tons.
13?
26,000 pounds.
So 26,000 pounds. I must have missed that one on the test. 26,000 pounds, which is,
Any other questions or observations?
I'm guessing, Todd, the section we walked over that's already ground level is going to remain ground level for the bus repairs?
yes.
And just
Yes.
that one side's being elevated to match everything?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
They are going to address that lift that's there, the current lift. They're not exactly sure how we're going to address it, but they're going to address that because that's going to be covered in.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, item 9 was the update. Item 10, you want to do those together?
It's your call, sir.
Actually, let's do those separately. Item 10, approval of the bus garage relocation building upgrades project owner architect agreement. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 11 is approval of bus garage relocation building upgrades project, the schematic design. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move. Approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item 12 is discussion prior procedures due to Every Student Succeeds Act, also known as ESSA requirements.
And we have three policies that it affects, and they deal with homeless students and foster children. And want to bring you up to date on the procedure that has to go along with these three policies. Has to be in effect by December 10th of this year. And so we're going to make sure that we have a note in our board minutes that this is the way we're going to handle this. Also, the 9.121 is on the entrance age for students in kindergarten. And I know that there was a question about that a little earlier. And next month I will come back to you with the procedure that we're going to use for early entrance into kindergarten. And I'll bring that back next month. Basically, on the entrance for homeless and foster children, what we're saying in there is none of the requirements like proof of identity, proof of immunization, health care, vision, and dental care will be a barrier for them to go on and enroll in our school. We will enroll these children and then go back and work with the cabinet to make sure we get these items and there's no barrier for them coming. Okay, that has to do with the entrance age. The next one is school attendance zone. If a child has for example, been going to school in New Haven, and all of a sudden they were moved to a foster family in our district, let's say Wellington, for example. If it was deemed necessary, then that child could go to school still in New Haven. And so you would work with the agencies, you'd work, if it was in their best interest to go to that school, then that's what we would do. So that's, attendance zone would be waived in that matter. The other part of that is, if it was deemed that it would be in their best interest to be in that school, then we would be eligible, or they'd be eligible to get transportation from us. Now, the way that would work, if it would be an extra cost, then we would work with the cabinet. The cabinet may reimburse us, or we may cover the cost, or there may be a combination of the two. Now, there'll be a point of contact, which will be our DPP that'll work with this and work with the cabinet. Foster care is very easy to understand the definition of that. School of origin is simply the school they came from when they were placed in foster care or became homeless. And third is best interest is a little fuzzy. And we would work with the cabinet, work with the counselors, work with our school staff to determine which would be the best place for them to go to school, and then we would do that. And so those are the procedures that we're going to follow along with those three policies. Just wanted to make sure that you were aware of them, and that's what we would have done anyway, but we got to make sure that this is in procedure and this is what we're going to do. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Any questions on those?
Yeah, to put a number on, you said homeless students, how many people are we talking, how many kids are we talking?
Very few. Now, the definition of homeless student is pretty broad. For example, if my daughter came back to live with me and her son was in our house, technically that student would be homeless in the broad definition. But now, being just out on the street is very few. Now, we do occasionally run into some foster children, but so you know how we are. We take everybody and don't let anything be a barrier to get them started. But we just wanted to make sure we get it in policy, or in procedure, excuse me. Okay?
Any questions, comments? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Item 13 is approval of fiscal year 2017 KETS offer of assistance, $20,328 match.
Mr. Downs, that item was discussion. You're saying it just needs to be included in the minutes that we discussed it?
Right. All we have to have is a note in the minutes to meet the requirement.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure we weren't passing up something there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
On to item 13, and you said a CATS assistance?
Yes, sir.
$20,000. And you all are familiar with this. We've done this many times. The education technology money is available for school districts, and it comes to you usually in small amounts about this size. And there's two things. It's an offer of assistance. If you accept it, then the Board of Education will match it. So that's something that you're committing to. And then secondly, if you can escrow this up to 3 years. And typically that's what we do. We usually include typically a few of these offers into one during that 3-year span, and then we're able to match that with our money and do a little bigger project. So I would recommend that we approve this.
Any comments? Seek a motion for approval of item 13, fiscal year 2017 KETS offer assistance, $20,328 match.
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 14, approval of the travel authorizations.
We have 2 trips that are coming before you today because they are overnight trips. The first one is the Student Y Club for our Bardstown Middle School. Trip date will be in December 11th through 13th. There's 24 students going. There will be 2 chaperones, male and female, will be making that trip, and it is a student-funded trip. The second trip that we have is a Lady Tiger basketball team. They will be in a Christmas tournament, December the 26th through the 29th. They'll be in Edmonson County. There will be 33 young ladies making that trip, and with 8-to-1 chaperone ratio. So it would be a pleasure of the board. I recommend that you approve these 2 together unless you have questions or other reasons not to.
Seems to be in order.
Move to approve all travel authorizations as presented.
All right, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15, approval of leave of absence request.
Have 2 of those. We have primary teacher, Miss Boston, maternity leave, and then Kelsey Ward with a family medical leave, who is a child care assistant. Everything's in good order.
Seek a motion for approval of the leave of absence request, both of them.
So moved.
May I have a second?
One.
And we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 16 is personnel resignations.
I just have one that I want to share with you, Miss Laura Ferris, Bardstown child care assistant, effective October the 14th.
All right. Item 17 is the site-based decision-making council minutes that are in your packet. And item 18, seek a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
One of the things, a while back you gave us a list of acronyms. I would appreciate being reissued that
Yes,
list.
we'll do that.
Because it's ever expanding.
Hey, we'll do that ASAP, okay?
All right.
But
That's
if
pretty
you can
good.
find it, where were those people from today?
That Band-Aid?
Fleming County, if you
Yeah.
access Fleming County site, they've got it on there, so.
Okay, all right. Well,
All right.
we will have it and expand ours if necessary.
So we have a single motion for adjournment. May I have a second? May I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
Good.
I like the name of this woman on this one board. Her name is Chelsea.